What if Modulo Yuji raised Gojo Satoru as a kid? Not trained him, not fought alongside him, raised him from when he was little. Before Jujutsu High, before Doji, before any of it. And here is why that matters. Gojo was always going to be the strongest. That was never the question. 6 eyes, limitless, hollow purple, all of that was coming regardless. The question is who he was underneath all that power. Because that part was broken and nobody noticed, and it cost everyone around him everything. Gojo Satoru was born in 1989 and the Jujutsu world stopped breathing. First person in 400 years to carry both the 6 eyes and the limitless at the same time. Before he could walk, there was already a bounty on his head worth hundreds of millions. Not because he had done anything, just because of what he was born as. Every time he handled the attempts, Gojo understood something no 6-year-old should have to understand. The bounty didn't make him a target, it made him a weapon nobody had claimed yet. That was when Modulo Yuji found him. Yuji met young Gojo in a convenience store at 9 PM. A 7-year-old standing in the snack aisle holding a bag of chips. The old man said nothing. He simply walked to the register, paid for the chips and walked out. Gojo followed him to the door. Why did you do that? Modulo Yuji stopped, turned and looked at him. Not at the 6 eyes or for who he was. He looked at him, at an innocent 7-year-old kid, and he said, "Because you were just standing there and nobody was helping." He then walked away. Gojo stood outside in the dark holding the bag of chips, 6 eyes scanning, finding nothing, no threat in any direction. For the first time in his life, nothing to prepare for. Just to get outside at store at 9 PM. Just stats. For the next 8 years, Modulo Yuji kept showing up in Gojo's life. Not every day, but enough. And then, one Tuesday at Jujutsu High, Gojo came back from a solo mission at 11 PM and found him sitting on the stairs like he had been there for hours. Gojo sat down confused yet relieved at the same time. "You did the mission alone," Modulo Yuji said. It was faster. "That is not why. You've been doing everything alone since you were a child, and nobody's ever given you a reason to stop. It works, yeah, right up until it doesn't." He let that sit. "There is going to be someone," Modulo Yuji said finally, quiet, choosing every word carefully. "Not a mission, not a teacher, someone who matters. And when that person starts carrying something too heavy, you're going to miss it." "What person?" "You'll know. People who carry things alone long enough," he said, and then stood up, starts making decisions they can't walk back from. He then left without a trace. 3 weeks later, Gojo met Suguru Geto. They talked for hours. Gojo couldn't remember the last time that had happened. For the first time in his life, Gojo felt connection. Walking back that night, Modulo Yuji fell into step beside him. Gojo didn't look at him. "It's him, isn't it?" Yuji didn't reply. Gojo nodded once and went back to Geto the next day, and the day after that. It became a thing without either of them naming it. 2 of the strongest sorcerers of their generation sitting in the same courtyard every afternoon. Geto said things Gojo had never considered. Gojo listened in a way he never had before. 3 weeks in and Geto started to notice. "You're different than when you started here." "Different how?" "You actually listen." "There is this old man," he said. "Shows up sometimes. Seems like nobody else can see him but me. Since I was 7, Gojo added. "But what does he want?" "I don't know, but he keeps coming back." Geto opened his mouth to respond and suddenly Gojo dropped. No warning, no cursed energy to track, nothing the 6 eyes could have seen coming. Because Toji Fushiguro was different. Geto caught him before he hit the ground. 3 weeks of sitting in the same courtyard every afternoon had taught him something about Gojo that nobody else in the Jujutsu world knew. The half second before Gojo's body registered something wrong, his breathing changed. Geto felt it because he knew Gojo this time more than ever. Gojo's 6 eyes were still running. They were always still running, scanning everything, finding nothing that should have been able to do this. This wasn't supposed to happen yet. In every version of this timeline, Toji Fushiguro arrived during the escort's mission while Riko Amanai was still alive. But Modulo Yuji had distorted something by being here. By appearing consistently in the life of the most monitored child in Jujutsu world for 15 years, Toji was offered a huge bounty to track the mysterious figure that was influencing the Honored One. He spent 3 months tracking Gojo. He noticed the way Gojo's Satoru had started moving differently than someone with 6 eyes and limitless. Toji found it unsettling. So he moved before the escort mission, before Riko Amanai, before he had finished engineering the perfect conditions to kill a Gojo who no longer existed. He moved now, while Gojo was distracted, while Gojo was standing in a courtyard talking to someone like he had nowhere more important to be. The blade found its mark. Geto caught him before he hit the ground. Somewhere in Gojo's darkness, Modulo Yuji was already fading. Not because of the blade, because of what the blade represented. A timeline accelerating past the point where he belonged in it. Every time Gojo had noticed what Geto was carrying instead of walking past it, the world had shifted slightly further from the one that produced this Yuji Itadori. Toji moving early was the proof the shift had gone deep enough to matter. A better world was arriving. And Modulo Yuji didn't belong in it anymore. He stood at the edge of Gojo's darkness one final time, watched the reverse curse technique ignite, and Gojo coming victorious this time with the help of his best friend. He didn't say anything. There was nothing left to say. Everything that needed to be planted had been planted. 15 years of showing up. He looked at Gojo one last time, with a proud smile, then gone, without a goodbye. Just gone. The way things disappear when the reason for their existence stops being true. Gojo opened his eyes, Geto beside him, the most powerful sorcerer alive, sitting on the ground outside Jujutsu High, reaching for something at the edge of his awareness that the 6 eyes couldn't locate. A convenience store at 9 PM, gone. The Jujutsu High stairs at 11 PM, gone. Every memory, just gone. He would spend the rest of his life occasionally reaching for something at the edge of his memory that was never there when he looked directly at it. And the new timeline arrived quietly. Geto never fell, because Gojo had been paying attention, because Gojo was always there for him. Geto stayed, and staying changed everything. Kinjaku's plan lost its most critical piece. The calling game never happened the same way. Yuji Itadori was born into a world that was fractured but not shattered. Gojo's students felt the difference without being able to name it. They just knew their teachers saw them, not their potential. He saw them. None of them knew why. They never would.